Boyfriend gave me food I'm allergic to at his sister's wedding because I refused to have a threesome. I'm 29F and I met my boyfriend, Michael, who's 35, at a show where I was performing. I've been involved in theater as a hobby for a while, and after the performance, Michael came up to me, complimented my performance, and offered to buy me a drink. We've been together for just over a year now. Last week, his sister got married, and I was honored, though a bit surprised, to be asked to be one of the bridesmaids. We hardly know each other, so I assumed this was her way of trying to build a connection between us. I thought it was a sweet gesture. However, a week before the wedding, Michael and I got into a fight. He mentioned that he wanted to experiment in our relationship by spicing up our sex life with a threesome. His reasoning was that, since I'm bisexual, I might be open to the idea, but I wasn't on board with it and told him how I felt. Things quickly went downhill from there, and we ended up in a petty standoff. He began ignoring my texts and calls after leaving my place. The silence dragged on until the day before his sister's wedding, when he finally messaged me, asking what time he should pick me up because, as he put it, we couldn't arrive separately, otherwise, people would gossip about us. During the drive to the venue, he barely spoke to me, and the tension was palpable. The wedding itself went smoothly enough, but at the reception, things were still awkward. Michael got a plate of food for me and leaned in to kiss me, but I instinctively pulled back. After that, he just stood up and went off to mingle with other guests, leaving me to my thoughts. I started feeling ill not too long after, and 911 was called. I realized I was having an allergic reaction. I had my pen but still had to be carted off by the ambulance. That's when someone who was looking for Michael said that he had left with some of the other groomsmen to a bar nearby. I called 6 times and texted that it was an emergency as I was getting checked by the paramedics, and again when they strongly suggested I go to the hospital, but he never replied. I was released from the hospital and called him to ask him to pick me up, but he didn't. So, I woke up my best friend, and she took me home and stayed with me overnight to make sure I was okay. The next morning Michael called me, but I was still asleep. He left me a lengthy voicemail, yelling at me that I ruined his sister's wedding and that I always have to make things about me. He came over to further berate me and told me he should just break up with me at this point because I am dramatic, and this is all too much. I pointed out that he had gotten my plate, knew full well that I have an allergy to coconut, and that his sister had told me afterward that he knew the cake he gave me was the coconut cream cake. All the food had signs saying what it was and what the ingredients were, as I was not the only person with allergies attending. He left, telling me that he couldn't talk to me when I was this way. I was honestly exhausted, so I didn't bother going after him. But his father called me to ask how I was doing. After I answered, he then told me how I was hurting Michael's heart by blaming him and that Michael had been inconsolable since we fought. I texted Michael to ask if we could talk, but the conversation somehow went back to the threesome. He claimed I don't respect him, even in intimate settings, or want to hear him out regarding his needs, and that I make things about me. I am so confused because, to me, this feels manipulative, but I respect his father so much. I go to their church, and he is a pastor there, so having him tell me I am in the wrong throws me. Edit. A lot of comments are suggesting that this was intentional. I had actually never considered that he gave me something I'm allergic to on purpose, certainly not to use against me in our argument. But I think I may have to come clean and talk to his parents. I know them well, so hopefully it won't go too badly. Mini update, Michael texted me this morning to apologize. He said the wedding was stressing him out and he had a lot on his mind, so he accidentally handed me the plate meant for himself, not the one for me. He claimed he didn't know I was in the hospital and feels bad that he wasn't there for me, but he left the reception with some of the groomsmen to blow off much-needed steam. I don't know how I feel about it all, so I just replied A-okay. He is now asking to come over and talk this out in person. Second edit, for those of you calling me stupid or implying I'm childish and asking, why am I still with this guy? Just know you remind me a lot of him in how he used to put me down and bully me, and I genuinely wonder if you treat people in your life the same way he treated me. I suspect you do. Glad to be rid of him and indifferent about you. First update. Well, many of you were right. I should not have met him in person, but I did. He took me out to lunch, insisting he would pay for it all, and it was incredibly over the top. He brought flowers and a written letter of apology, but as some of you messaged me, his apologies dodged the point with phrases like, if I hurt you, or that you're feeling X or Y feeling, etc. He quoted some scriptures and said he has repented as his carelessness caused me harm. I wasn't much moved by any of it until he said how much his family loves me and how much our church roots for us as a couple, and I kind of sat back and realized that one flimsy reason I was even entertaining forgiving him and staying was because of the pressure I dealt with as the GF of a pastor's son. It occurred to me that there were so many times I let things slide because he is the heir apparent, so he had the power in the social aspect of our community. Sorry, I know I am rambling, but I'm emotional and tipsy. I remember just staring at him and saying it was incredibly alarming that by now he can't be aware of my one single allergy, and that he didn't bother to tell his own GF he was stepping out with the guys, or even that he was stepping out of his own sister's wedding at all. He then said it was really, really stupid of me to eat a cake that had coconut and implied I was an idiot for not realizing what I had was coconut. I realized then he would never accept that he was in the wrong, and thus there was no point. I stood up and smiled and said, you know what? Don't worry about it. Thanks for dinner. Good night. To which he replied that if I wasn't going to grow up and accept his apology, I was a waste of his time. He uses that a lot whenever we disagree, and it usually hurts me deeply, but this time it was like a Rolodex of memories flooded my brain, and I really suspect he's been deliberately making me sick whenever we disagree to teach me a lesson. I said I was done, and he shouldn't waste his time with me from this point on, and left. I then sent screenshots to his father explaining the situation as best I could without blaming Michael for prior illnesses without proof, and I got a text about 20 minutes ago from his father. His father is incredibly disappointed in my immaturity and hurt that I wouldn't even give it until Sunday at church, where we can pray together, talk it out, and heal. I felt this way for a while, but I was able to say it this time. Using religion as a tool of guilt is low, and I am no longer concerned with his version of God, as that version is a judgmental, cruel, and heartless jerk, while the one I always thought of was loving, compassionate, and kind, and I am done. I was told by him and by further emails rolling in that I am no longer welcome at my church until I reconcile with my true husband and learn compassion and respect for my leaders. So I guess that's it. I will enjoy sleeping in tomorrow and eating coconut-free food while lazing about my home rather than going to 3 separate church services starting at 8 a.m. and then figure it all out from there. I don't know how to sign off, but I do watch a concerning amount of Charlotte Dobe videos, and she usually ends things with practical shit like do your laundry or something, so I will just say live for yourself, feed your soul, and know you are enough. I certainly am going to put in the work to get there, and I hope we all make it to the other side content and filled with love and joy. And by the way, thank you, Michael. I know you are reading this. I know you know it's me. And I hope your socks are always just a little soggy. Second update. I found a church in my city a bit more laid back, like we can go to the pub after and have a laugh laid back. I did like it and made amazing friends I am still in touch with, but the going to church idea came from my therapist, and it was to see if I do identify with the church or the ideals of it, and I don't. So now I am back to being the heathen I am. My ex quickly moved on, and he had a new girlfriend within a month of us breaking up. Bless that woman, I thought, because isn't she in for a ride? Oddly enough, she reached out to me on my Facebook, and I was curious and opened it. She started with who she is, how long she and ex have been dating, and how long they knew each other, childhood friends, so basically forever. She then said that she feels convicted by the Holy Ghost to seek a resolution between me and ex, and she is worried I may be his true wife. And if I cannot forgive, then I am proving I am not, and to let her know, as she cannot marry him until I make this clear. I shit you not. Seeing the screenshots of the chat with my new church buddies, my friends sent vomiting emojis and said that this is a cult and not a faith. I concluded they were right and replied, yeah, marry him if that's what you want. And nothing more. I am getting messages from members of the church, but I don't much care. I've loved my life since leaving. I didn't know life could be so enjoyed really, and it makes me wonder how much damage the church had on me, but for now, just for fun, I am going to an appointment with a friend of a friend's apprentice on tarot readings. I was asked. No offense to anyone who believes in it, it's just not normally my thing, so I am curious and interested. Maybe it will be good. I will let you know. Third update. This is really hard to explain. So after my last post, he stayed away for all of a hot second. He kept dropping off gifts and food, fucking food of all things at my door. I ignored them and threw them out at the end of each week like all trash. He then waited out front for me, so when I came out to take the trash out, he was sitting right there. I didn't even see him. I was tired and just trying to get chores done. He blocked me from my door and went on a speech about how I am his true wife, and that he cannot marry his GF without my permission. I can't keep track of the mental and theological gymnastics he took, but he basically asked me for a threesome with his current GF to see if we can work out who his true wife is. I bluffed and said that my necklace has a panic button on it, and the cops are alerted of him being there and to go. He sort of stared at me, but it was blank, like he wasn't even human. He went on to say stuff about thinking about me every night before bed and more. I started to gauge just how fast I am compared to him and how quick I would need to run to even wake a neighbor, which one of them would be the quicker to responsive, and on and on. I just kept saying no and that the cops would be there and thank the universe for a random siren. I don't know if that's what convinced him, but he did leave, and he was sort of chuckling and said that I've always been so playful and called my behavior an act. It took me less than 30 minutes to pack a bag and head to a friend's. I sat in her tub for what felt like a day. It wasn't. When I finally got out, she and I sat down and started making a plan to start moving my things out bit by bit until it's just down to the furniture. I don't give a flying fuck about the furniture. So we implemented the plan. She would drop in, her dad would, her mom would, and I would with her brother, and slowly over this time we took everything I really cared to keep from my home. I'm safe and away from there and just ready to wash my hands of the place. He has texted me a few times assuring me of this plan to pick his wife. So I finally cracked and sent his messages to his parents last week. It's been silent since then until this past Wednesday. There's a bar I like where they have a wine Wednesdays, and I went to just relax until I felt a tap on my shoulder. He's there with what looks like a group, and he starts smiling and says we need to talk. I loudly tell him to leave me alone, but he just drops to his knees and asks me to marry him. Some people start to clap. A regular who knows me is now at my back, leaning in to ask if I'm okay. I jerk back and tell him to leave me alone. The regular offered to pay my tab so I could leave, and he walked me to my car. Now it's been this game of getting footage and dealing with the police. So far, I'm told, this isn't evidence of harassment but a domestic dispute, so I don't know what to do about that. I know that I am done with where I live. But moving now feels like the hardest task in the world. I know I have to. I can't stay here. But now I'm mourning it all. It all feels too big. Second story. My family expects me to pay for my birthday dinner. Yesterday, I turned 18 years old. For the past 6 years, like clockwork, every year on my birthday, my family and I would go to the same restaurant, and I would always order the same meal. For anyone who's confused, I have extreme OCD and high-functioning autism. This means I like things to stay the same way they've always been, and I'm very well regulated because of it. Now, back to the story. Every year on my birthday, we would go to Applebee's. My go-to order would always be the steak and shrimp parmesan, with a side of loaded mashed potatoes and cheesy steamed broccoli. To top it off, I'd add a side of mozzarella sticks. Yes, I know it's a bit much, but it's my birthday, right? Altogether, the meal costs around $30, which I admit is kind of expensive. This year, I didn't notice anything unusual at first. My mom, stepdad, and older brother joined me for the dinner, just like always. We sat down, but there was a strange quietness in the air. Normally, they'd be talking or at least wishing me a happy birthday, but this time there was nothing. I started tapping my fingers together, which is something I do when I get nervous or anxious. Then, my mom broke the silence. She said, well, I didn't know what she meant. I responded with, well, what? Then she said, aren't you going to call the waiter over? That's when the anxiety really started kicking in. I have major anxiety issues when it comes to talking to people, especially strangers like waiters. I tend to stutter and feel really scared. So, I asked if she could do it and she sighed, clearly annoyed, before finally calling the waiter over. My stepdad and brother were just sitting there, looking indifferent. As the waiter arrived and began taking orders, my mom stopped him and said, separate bill, and that's when my heart started racing. I don't have a job and the little money I do have comes from helping neighbors rake leaves. I was completely frozen. I couldn't say anything and my stomach twisted into knots from the stress. My mom explained that since I'm now 18, I should be responsible for paying for my own things. The situation had already made me feel sick, so I just said, I don't have the money. My mom sighed again, annoyed, and waved the waiter off. The whole mood at the dinner changed after that. It was awkward and tense. My mom ended up paying for my 23-year-old brother's meal, but not mine. On the ride home, my family kept calling me an entitled little a-hole. When we got home, I ran straight to my room and cried. Since then, they've been ignoring me completely. I know I'm bad at picking up on social cues, but my family has never acted like this before. I mean, never. I'm angry and upset, but also really confused. If they had given me a heads up about paying, I would have saved the money I earned from raking leaves. I just don't understand why they treated me like this on my birthday. I also don't mean this to be a validation post. I have all the information you have. I'm just very confused and terrible with social cues. Asperger's, am I right? My family gets a little tight on money. I guess I really should have asked before I assumed they were going to pay it for me. But I missed out on my birthday dinner because I wasn't mature enough to bring my own money. I'm just going to rake leaves for a couple weeks to order it from takeout. I understand why my parents were horrible. But I can't claim I didn't do anything wrong when there was nothing wrong beforehand. I've cried about it and tried speaking with them, but they don't want to talk to me. I don't know what I did. Also, I'm high-functioning autistic. It's a bit difficult to pick up on social cues, and besides the anxiety, I'm fine. I'm going to sit down with my parents tomorrow and talk things over. This post kind of painted them as monsters, but I was a very tough kid. Everyone's saying to leave and call the state, etc. A psychologist deemed me perfectly capable of being independent if I could work on my anxiety. My parents have been loving, but I could be a troublemaker sometimes. First update. I was able to sit down with my mom this morning. At first I was rather angry with them, but she would try to explain her side or events. She told me that in order for me to be more independent, I had to learn that people didn't always get what they wanted. Even if it's on our birthday, Christmas, or any holiday. I asked her why they didn't just sit down and talk with me. She said it wouldn't be as effective. She went into a whole lecture about how I've been leeching off of them for the past few months and that I need to learn how to be a proper adult. When I asked her if we were going to go back to Applebee's so we could do a birthday dinner makeover since I learned my lesson, she got angry. For everyone wondering if I got any gifts for my birthday. From my family, no, the dinner is usually the treat. Am I missing the point of this lesson? I understand that we don't always get what we want. I feel like my mom is manipulating me. I tried asking my brother about it, and all he said was talk to mom. Sorry, this isn't a climactic update. I'm sorry that it's not a happy ending. But this is all the information I have. I love my family so much. I do, but I feel like they're lying to me about stuff. I think they want me to leave the house. If that's the case, I'm going to talk to my caseworker at school who's in charge of my IEP. Second update. I am still at my family's house. For more information, my mom has been receiving Social Security from me since I was 8. It was about $800 to $900 a month. This money helped pay rent, get food for the house, etc. My mom tried convincing me to allow her to be my guardian. When I refused to sign anything, I had an evaluation done, which included an IQ test and some basic questions. The whole time my mother would try to lie, saying I couldn't take care of myself, to the point when the psychiatrist got mad at her and sent her out. I think my mom may have Munchausen syndrome. I'm not sure, and I'm not going to diagnose her. My stepdad is not an asshole and is actually way nicer to me than my mom. In fact, my stepdad tried putting aside cash for me for when I came of age, but my mom wouldn't let him. My half-brother is a lot like my mother personality-wise. Always takes her side on everything, never went to college, and doesn't have a job. For my mother's context, this doesn't excuse her actions. She has bipolar disorder. However, she blames her disorder for everything. She will say the rudest thing to you and cut you down to your core. Then the next day, pretend everything is fine and never talk about it. If you try to bring it up, she says I was having an episode. I understand I have a disability. But it's a disability that I can live with. I've been going to therapy for anxiety and have been doing a lot better than I used to be. I don't know what my future holds. I'm trying to look for a job and places to stay at the moment. When I'm able to leave, I'm cutting my mom out of my life. My stepdad I'll stay in contact with, my stepbrother maybe if he can escape my mom's influence. I've been severely manipulated and emotionally abused. I see that now reflecting on everything. To think, this all started with a birthday dinner I couldn't have. I'm thinking about contacting my biological dad's family. He left when I was younger, and I haven't had contact with his family since. My mom always told me they didn't want to see me, but then again, that could have been a lie too. Third update. So my mom found the Reddit posts. I don't know how or when, but I think my brother had something to do with it. She went on a huge temper tantrum, throwing things across the room and calling me the R-slur. For making her look bad, and how almost all of it was lies. I asked her to explain how any of it was a lie, and she completely dodged the question. I remember just crying and asking her why she refused to buy me my birthday dinner on my 18th birthday. She wouldn't answer me. It was only $30, guys. I know it sounds expensive, but it wasn't that much considering I never asked for anything on my birthday. She continued to call me a liar and has since told me that I'm being evicted. I have been served papers, but I was planning on leaving anyway. She's been crying and ignoring me. Now I am seriously confused and doubting myself. At first I thought I had gotten everything, I had all the information. But am I missing something? Everyone's been telling me no on here, which has risen my confidence. But this was a total shattering moment. I feel like an idiot and I feel terrible, but she called me a leech. I can't tell if I'm being manipulated or not. I can't tell if this is just another lie. I feel like I'm going batshit crazy staying here. I didn't mean to get everyone entangled in all of this, and I didn't mean for this to go insanely viral. I didn't give out her name, I gave out my nickname that I've been called. Maybe a few of her friends recognized the post and me. I can't really tell. I still plan to reach out to my dad. My stepdad hasn't really said anything and just sat on the couch nonchalantly while my mother was on her tyrannical speech about how I was Satan's spawn. Final update. Well, I couldn't get in contact with my dad. I messaged him on Facebook and tried getting a hold of his friends. None responded. Currently I am couch surfing with a friend. I would have stayed at my house for a bit longer, but my mom and my brother had a fight with me, and they got physical with me. So I began feeling unsafe in that environment. I didn't take much with me but a bag full of clothes and the documents I could get a hold of. I've blocked my mom and my brother on all forms of social media. The friend's dad I'm staying with said I could stay as long as I like, but I feel like I'm overstaying my welcome.